Today I'm cooking pig feet. So, one thing you will notice about Smithfield pig feet is that it has no toenails. So you don't have to cut the toenails off. The GED program started in Newport News to educate and change the African American soldier. When I first saw people making pig feet online, I said, well, they kept saying, cut off the toenails. And I was like, well, the toenails, because they said, we hate the toenails. And I looked and I said, well, Smithfield pig feet don't have any toenails. So because I'm from this area, and most of the pig feet in this area don't have toenails. And when people have other kinds of pig feet from other places or name brands, they don't have toenails. Because Smithfield don't have toenails on their pig feet. To understand the program, you must first understand some of the history of the African Americans. After the Civil War, African Americans were free. They attended the same schools as Caucasians or European Americans. They lived together, rode on the train together, built businesses together, and were even allowed to marry each other. After the start of the laws of Jim Crow, African Americans were placed in separate parts of the city, but some still had businesses in the Caucasian part of town. You're going to add your water and get ready to put your pot on the stove. Before Jim Crow, the military was one. The Buffalo Soldier was a mixed platoon until Jim Crow started.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.
Add your seasoning to the water. Most people add pickling spices. I don't think I get that today. And don't forget vinegar. About a cupful. The African Americans that went from city organizing African Americans to learn to read and write, and the Caucasian Americans, because they were both together. And when they went out to do that, they just didn't go out to just organize you and teach you to read and write. They also went out to create farms and people they could socialize with and people they could marry. Pig feet usually take 4 hours to cook if you don't have a pressure cooker. The KKK was a small group in the South. They grew because of a movie called The Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffin. The NAACP protested that movie. After the fear of African Americans grew, the KKK devised a plan that in their eyes will restore power back to them. In their uprising, the Midwest killed off most of the African Americans that lived in the Midwest. They were known as the foot soldiers of the KKK because they killed people, they carried a gun, and they were known as uneducated and poor. When they came to the South, West, and North, their killing became controlled. The South, the West, and the North did not want everyone in every farm killed off. Their target was the African American and the abolitionists, which changed the structure of the country. So the pig feet has been boiling for, I think, about an hour. And you can just smell the aroma of the vinegar. It smells very good. But check your pot, make sure your water is not low, and you don't have to add more water and more seasoning, because it has to boil for 4 hours. It still isn't done. It's still tough, and the skin is tough. So you want this until it pulls off the bone and it's easy to pull apart. But right now, it's not done. And this is what I believe happened. They married into some racist people. The people, therefore, felt like the African Americans and the Caucasians was totally out of order. They were running around saying they were free. They didn't work on plantations. They were sharecroppers. But it all depends on the era of America you was in. They were also able to own land and get an education. They hit schools. And that we should be slaves. And they organized. They worked with them. In the beginning, I believe they did. And they worked with them, naming the communities and the neighborhoods and the farms and all of it. Because when they came, they knew exactly who they were. They knew exactly where they lived at. And so, this is what I believe. I tell you. As you see, the water is boiling out of the pig feet, so I have to add more water to this. I can't let it get too low. But it still isn't done, even though it's been cooking for almost 2 hours. The skin is still tough. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more water to this pig feed and some vinegar. Right there to keep it covered. Changed the structure of the country. They came together and started forming racially mixed neighborhoods. It made them smaller. It made the group smaller. They were also targeted mostly by family. They wanted the Caucasians to move out of the neighborhood, and they wanted the African Americans to go on the farm and the plantation and all of that and work. This was in the 30s, and work as slaves. A lot of America was divided in the African American and racial mixed community. In the African American and racial mixed community, a lot of America was divided. Some people after the 30s were saying they were slaves. Some were sold to family members. Some stayed on the farms and wherever they were sold at. Some realized what it meant to be a slave. And some just walked off the plantation. Ran away, walked off, whatever they did, they left. Was the community where the women were a commodity. They came across country killing people. They killed off a lot of industry. And you have to understand the African American community. And some of the people was forced into prostitution. African Americans, Asian Americans, Caucasian Americans. Some of them were forced into prostitution. Some of the women and some of the industry too. So some of the industry was forced into prostitution, and some of the people just ran casinos and just forced the people from their farm, the women from their farm, the African American women, into prostitution. But they had all three different types of houses. They had different types of houses, prostitution houses, in the area I'm from. I guess because of the casinos. They had African American prostitution house, Asian American, and Caucasians. So some of the Caucasians who were property owners, who were abolitionists, some of their children was forced that route. Well, the South became closer to slavery. That was the KKK. And the differences in the neighborhood. There were differences. The African American neighborhood, the super races. We call them the super races. They so you think you white, you won't learn to read and write. You think you white, we slaves. But they were mean. And they would beat you down because of the color of your hair, if you light or dark, the shape of your body, because of they said they were slaves. All of them were not like that. Some of them were very peaceful. We call those people separatists. At least we used to call them. My mom called them separatists. Separatists are very peaceful, always peaceful people who just voice their opinion, and there were them, and they weren't so peaceful. You can see the meat is pulling away from the bone. See? It's getting there, and it's softer. But mostly the African American neighborhood and the racial mixed neighborhood had came together, and they did not want their children killing and murdering people and out there in the street and killing women. So they had trained their men and had trained and came together as a community because they were not policed. And they decided that they were going to teach their sons not to kill women. And they did have a code, But some people, they came from different farms. They had different beliefs. The separatists was not killing anybody. But the super racists were. Super racist African American didn't kill no white people, no Caucasian people. They killed us. Black on black, that's exactly what it was. And they killed us. So the African American community and the racial mixed community was different. The African American community and the racial mixed community were the victims. So that made a different spirit. For this thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet, and if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this same, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So this is a law of God. And this law governs our brains and our actions. But the African American community was also a non-police community. Was that we were the victims. They were the victimizers. Now their neighborhood was different. In our neighborhood, most of the people who were killed in it was killed by racist people. In their neighborhood was a whole lot more segregation. They killed us, yes, but they also killed a lot of women for a lot of reasons. But they killed Hebrews. They killed each other because they were Catholic and Protestant. Catholic or Protestant. They killed women because of the color of their hair. They killed women because of the shape of the body. You're not all the way black. You're not all the way white. They killed for a whole lot of reasons, and they hit a whole lot of bodies, a whole lot of women and men. Men they were marched to kill, I know that one. But they hit a whole lot of women that were just over there dead. Dark head, dark eyed girl. All right, the pig feet has been cooking for 3 hours. So the water is boiled down. You don't want the water to boil too far down because it is a lot of grease in there, or saturated fat or meat fat. It is. You don't want the water to boil down too much because it is a lot of meat fat. Just enough water to cover the pig feet. Add some more vinegar and maybe some more seasoning if you want to. And let it cook. The African American soldier did not have to know how to read or write, but if they lived on a plantation, they could be a part of the military. The American military became a greater part of this city. They built military bases in the Newport News area. The soldiers were from all over America, whether they were from the plantation or believed they were free. The GED program. It was offered mainly to see who wanted to be considered free and to make sure they knew that they were free. Education was just offered to men because the men had to tote the load, get the job. It was jobs not open to us anymore, and jobs that had closed to us because we were no longer slaves on the farm. But part of our past as women and slaves is that we had to work like men. We had to have the same education they had. We had to pick cotton like they did. No matter what farm we were on, we had to be equally educated because we worked equally. And if the men died, all of them died, and the women had little boys to raise, they had to teach them. It's tender. Look, you could cut it. The Dust Bowl came, and they came back to the South with the Dust Bowl. Their women could not read or write, and they therefore were not accepted. The men could read and write. They therefore was married. They decided to offer the GED program to the Caucasian women of the Midwest. Of course, they knew who they were, and they knew who they were the children of. And they knew that they were the ones that came and killed some of their family members. In offering them the GED program, it also made a way for them to get married. Most likely, if they offered them the GED program and once you get educated, you're going to get married, then that meant they also had people for them to marry. But it was different than offering it to the African Americans, because when they offered it to the African Americans, they asked them if they wanted to be free. Because if the African Americans didn't want to be free, they therefore would refuse to learn to read. And I guess the same philosophy, I'm not sure, because women and men sometimes would go through anything to get married to each other. So I'm not sure if they would decline and say, no, I don't want to learn how to read and write, because I don't believe that women should know how to read and write, and we should not, and them not married. I'm not sure if they would decline to learn to read and write. So there it is, freshly cooked pig feet. And so the GED program progressed. And in the 70s, in the 60s and the 70s, it was a program open for everybody. The program became funded by the government in the 90s. So my generation when they set up the GED program, it was done by the community. The GED program is a program now geared mainly towards those who have given up on education, or those who have made mistakes in life. It was originally the African American Literacy Program. Throughout the years, it has changed to fit society. It's not a program that can be faded out because we live in an imperfect society with people who have made mistakes in life, who have dropped out of school for various reasons. And it's intended to give you a second chance, offered to everyone and to every age. I was never taught that once you get a certain age, you're unable to be educated. You're unable to learn. I was taught that you go and gather people and you tell them that you could change your life, change your life, change your direction. And then some people get up and do it, and they go out there and they make money and they get rich, and then you do it again. This is what I was taught by my family. You go back again and you tell them again, you could change your life. Your life don't have to be like this. Go back to school, get you an education, go start a business. You could change your life. And you say it again. And it might be another generation, or you say it to the older generation. Then you come back and say it again. You could change your life. You never stop telling them that. You never stop saying that to them, no matter how old they are. But it also was to get them to go out there and try, and to get people to try and to work at it and to keep them going, and just to get them to do. They were able to progress. Sometimes living as an African American, sometimes progress means your life. The GED program was originally geared towards people who believed they were slaves. And it was to get them to change their life and the direction of their life.